Good morning and welcome to Mental Health and Business. It's my privilege to welcome Dr. Fred Moss, who's a world-renowned psychiatrist, speaker, consultant, and advisor who's done some amazing and interesting work over many, many years in terms of humanizing the face of psychiatry. So, Dr. Fred, thank you. Thank you for being here and welcome.
It's just a pleasure to be here. Thank you. I'm really looking forward to our conversation, and it is an honor to join you this morning. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. You know, when I was looking at the many interesting things you've done, the good things you've done and continue to do, I was reminded, I hadn't thought about this in years, but when I was in graduate school, I came upon the work of Dr. Saz, who was the first person I had ever read to question the legitimacy of psychiatric intervention.
hmm
And you know, I'm sure you know this obviously better than I do, but you know, he was influential in discussing, among other interesting things, how the legal system and the medical system kept shuffling patients between the two of them, and nothing good was happening as a consequence. So that I was sort of re-energized by that, and subsequently, since I've been reading about what you do, I'm really interested in in specific questions about how you came to be the sort of anti-psychiatrist, if that's
Right.
fair.
I'm not sure that I'm really anti-psychiatry. I call myself the undoctor, but it's not a matter of fighting the psychiatric system per se. But the psychiatric system is very broken. In fact, a couple punches and it's just going to disintegrate. So there's no reason to really fight it. I mean, there's a way of being compassionate about the fact that it's completely devastatingly fractured. So there's
Hmm.
no reason to fight the system. I don't have that. So I wouldn't say that I'm anti-psychiatry so much. You know, Thomas says he would call himself, and I think most people who follow him would call themselves anti-psychiatry. I think I've learned over time that the violent fighting nature of how easy it is to take off on the mental health system doesn't lead to the kind of communication that's required in order to alter it. One has to take into consideration the concerns of all relevant parties in order to make any kind of difference in the world.
Hmm.
Now, the first time that I came up with, and it's many, many years ago that I came up with at least the questions, and then in 2006, it was like a massive affirmation that the psychiatric system was, in fact, perpetuating itself in a pretty sick way by often inducing or increasing or perpetuating or, in fact, causing the symptoms that it's marketed to treat. And I found that out in 2006 by doing something that at least contemporary people at the time thought was radical, which was that I had a couple thousand patients in my outpatient practice at the time in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I began to take some people off of medicine. Some of my so called lower risk patients, I began to take them just simply off of medicine, which was thought, what? You did what? It's so interesting that taking someone off a toxic medicine is thought to be radical, and dropping toxic medicines down the throat of people is thought not to be radical. It's very interesting how we work that way. Anyways, the outcome of that was that um, reliably and consistently, my clients got better, sometimes way better, and frequently lost their original diagnosis entirely in that process. So it began to see that the medications themselves were literally perpetuating and in some very real cases causing this actual symptoms they were marketed to deal with.
Can I
When
interrupt
I
you? Can I
Go ahead.
interrupt you, participant? What were the diagnostic categories in this group that got better without medication?
What were the categories?
Yeah, like what were the
Human.
difficulties?
They were human.
Well, I knew you were going to say that. That was a lob to you. How would you describe their difficulties? This group that did well without medication. Was it
How would I
cognitive?
describe
The difficulties, their
yeah,
difficulties.
the difficulties that they thought they were having was that they thought that they were chronically depressed or thought that they were chronically anxious, that they were exploring some sort of panic, or they could not find themselves organizing their life, those kinds of things, which are pretty natural. And
Right.
these days, it's almost entirely ubiquitous. So there's very few people who aren't going through stages of being overwhelmingly depressed, anxious, or disorganized,
Right.
because this is what the world is calling for. In
Right.
some ways, we don't blame a log for burning in the fire. And as Krishnamurti says, it's no sign of mental health to be well adjusted to a sick society. So being anxious and being depressed and being afraid and being disorganized, hello, you got it. I know you do. It isn't like I've interviewed you. I know you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
what the world is calling for.
Sure, I have to say too, and then I'll stop interrupting you for a while. One of the best, I'm a psychoanalyst, is, one of the best criticisms against psychoanalysis is that in the old days, I mean, we don't do this anymore, at least I don't. In the old days, the criticism was that psychoanalysis sets out to cure the symptoms that they induce. So if you go into a room and the person you're with is flat faced and doesn't say anything for year in and you're out, the person's going to have some kind of reaction to that, and then we say, aha, let's go cure that.
Yeah, for sure that's true in psychoanalysis, but I think, it's even more true when the medicines actually physiologically cause depression and cause anxiety and cause terror and cause panic and cause disorganization. Meaning, and I really mean this, if you want to know what it's like to be depressed, let's start an antidepressant on you and you will feel it. If you want to know what it's like to be psychotic, take an antipsychotic. There's no doctors out there who would dare sample antipsychotics, because antipsychotics, everyone knows in their heart of hearts, are going to cause massive so-called side effects, as if they cause side effects for us, but effects for them. It's like a really bizarre way to look at the world. Like there's an us and them out there. There's an them out there that somehow is so different than us. They respond differently to chemicals affecting the human nature. And in fact, look, this is really important to get this final point across, or this next point across. I have to say this on every podcast, and I reach a point every time where it's really important, which is right now, which is you may have listeners who have found themselves greatly improved by taking on their own sense of their whatever they've been described or diagnosed as their mental illness, whatever treatment protocol they're receiving, whatever medication regimen that they're on. They feel like this is the best. This is the best thing that could ever happen. They wouldn't trade it for the world. It couldn't be better. This is the coolest thing that's happened in their life, and they're all good. For that group of people, I really mean, please keep doing what you're doing. If you have found that in any place in life, not just in mental health, but if you have found something that is the best, that you wouldn't trade it for anything better than what it is, then by all means, you need to stay on that track. This conversation that you and I are having is more for the tens or maybe hundreds of millions of people who don't feel that way, who are pretty sure that they're underdiagnosed, overdiagnosed, undermedicated, overmedicated, improperly medicated, whatever they're feeling. And this group of people is pretty disillusioned with the way the system has managed them. They've walked into the front door looking for help for their so-called mental illness, their mental discomfort, their whatever level of misery that they're explaining, and the system or the marriage with the system has failed them. They're no longer feeling any better than they did when they came in. And in most, or certainly many cases, they're actually feeling worse than when they came in. And they're wondering what the hell happened. And this is the group that's having, that I'd like to point our discussion at today. Again, for the group that's doing well, this isn't an argument with you. Please keep doing what you're doing. Right, it's for the group that's not doing well that this discussion is warmly addressed it.
I hear you. What? Maybe this is a naive question, but are there medications in your mind that are worse than others in terms of the, or is it a horse race?
That sounds like a political kind of. I can compare it to like the play. Do we have Dumb and Dumber? Do we have Bad and Worse? What do we got going on here? And the truth is, they're all pretty lousy. They're all pretty lousy ultimately. And are there some that are worse than others? It really depends what metric you're using. I think that, the more powerful the medicine, that you run into issues like, the so-called the antipsychotics. I think they're wicked. They're completely wicked, and they cause a lot of side effects, and they blunt all of your personality, and they're intended to do that. So they are willing to take out all the lightning out of your system so that whatever lightning is bothering other people is no longer bothering other people. So there's that, like it just like takes all the spikes out of your life. I think they're pretty rough. I think the antidepressants are also really quite rough by doing the same thing, blunting emotions. It doesn't merely point at depression, it points at all emotions, and it does reduce or muffle or stifle those emotions at times. But in the same process actually creates an underlying depression. And I think the anti-anxiety agents are similarly, if you want a panic attack, let's get you started on Xanax and see what happens. Because if you have, and get you on a steady dose of Xanax, and before too long, you'll be having your own sense in between the doses of what anxiety feels like. And you'll be having a sense of what panic feels like more than likely. Now, which one of those is worse than the other? I'm not sure that there's, sort of measures in funny ways. Now, here's what I really want you to get is that it's not the medicine's fault. It's just medicine. You don't blame rat poison for killing rats.
Right.
It's not rat poison's fault. The idea is that, and this is where the undoctor, which is a moniker that I affectionately took on from a friend a few years ago, the undoctor comes in. It's really a matter of people needing to hear that there's something wrong with them.
I love that.
Psychiatry is the only subspecialty in all of so-called medicine. I'm not sure psychiatry is in the medical field, although it also could be the medical. It's either all of the medical field or not in the medical field. So I think psychiatry is the only subspecialty in all of medicine where if you tell somebody they're okay, they get furious. Right. That's just not true in the other fields in medicine. If an oncologist tells you you're okay, you're like, what? You're on the cloud. Mm-hmm. If a cardiologist says, nice exam, you're on a cloud. Right. If psychiatry says you're okay, you're like, dude, I am so not okay. I am going next door to find a real doc. And people need confirmation that there's something wrong with them. Now, so this conversation is aimed at all of us, by the way, because each one of us, including likely you, Nicholas, is pretty certain that there's something wrong with us.
Dude.
In fact, it's a trait of normalcy to know that you're not normal. Like if you know that you're different than everybody else walking the planet, welcome to humanity. That is called normal. And when we get that our intense need to be unique is actually so not unique, then we start realizing that there was nothing wrong with us in the first place. And stumbling through this world, tumbling through the world that is so high stimulus, so many obstacles, so many hurdles, so many difficult processes to put into place and organize and carry on with. And we're asked to do that with grace and ease. And if we're not doing it with grace or ease, blame ourselves for being out of tune, right, then we're going to all know that we're abnormal. Psychiatrists and mental health workers across the board, all the ancillary mental health workers, social workers, psychologists, counselors, we only get paid if we diagnose you. If we write no diagnosis on the insurance form, literally we will not get paid.
Right.
You go to a barber shop enough times, which clearly I have, then you're going to get a haircut. And that's true, very much true with the psychiatric field as well. You come into the psychiatric field enough times, and frankly, that usually means once, you're going to get yourself a diagnosis. And you're not going to be able to erase that off your record either.
Of course. So fascinating. I have to ask you before I forget,
Yeah.
what are the more one of the more moving and profound readings I did and still do are on the umbrella term would be theories of change. Like, how do
Is
we
what?
actually, theories of change? How do we
Uh-huh.
actually envision change? What happens? This is not from a medical standpoint, but from a psychotherapeutic, psychoanalytic standpoint. Like, when we see patients over time and they get better or they don't, how do we understand that? Like, how do we understand what we're doing and how we're doing it affects them one way or the other? Given, given, I guess my question is, what are your theories of change? What
Yeah.
do
So change is inevitable, and people are, people are going to get better or going to get worse again, depending entirely on whatever your metric is. Some people measure better or worse simply by the subjective experience of the client, of the patient, of the customer. If the patient says I'm better, you're like, cool, he's better. Or there's another way to measure it, which is by my assessment as the diagnoser. Can you remember? Are you making more money? Is your relationship with your spouse better? Are you in less fights? Are you drinking less? These are metrics that I design that you might not even think are better. I'm calling you my client, of course,
you,
but so the metrics of what is better in the first place becomes really, really hazy when you start looking at what is better. Change is different, though. Change, there, change is just automatic. We're already, a quadrillion things have changed since you asked me this question. And so change is just sheerly inevitable. Now we have the illusion, like I see people, and I think you probably do too, see people week after week. I'm like, how are you? It's about the same. No, you're not. There's no way you're about the same. I get that you have an illusion that things are about the same a week later as they were last week.
mm-hmm.
And no, they're not. There's 7 quadrillion things have changed since last week. And we start really looking at, is what has changed for the better, changed for the worse? What are you really looking at? They come in, okay, I want to take on my depression. Well, okay, how are you looking at the world? What is it that's causing this so-called depression? What's happening in the world that you actually audaciously believe should not be happening? This is the human nature, right? This is the human condition. We have the audacity, the sheer audacity to actually believe that what's happening shouldn't be happening. This is an extraordinary mind screw up, a mind cluster. There has never been a soul. I'm pretty sure I've done the research on this. There has never been a soul in the history of humanity who was living in a world where what was happening wasn't happening. Yet we are really radically not able to gather that up and embrace it. In fact, where peace lies, where human peace of mind lies, at least where the gurus, where the bodhisattvas, where the swamis, um, the sadiks, where the people who have really learned what peace of mind is, or the Buddhas of the world, is really embracing what's so right now is going to give you access to peace of mind. Now, most of us can't really hang with that. We buzz through that like fly-by nights, like, drive-bys. We come through it like, oh yeah, I'm good with here and now. Until now. Now I'm not good with what was, but I'm good with where I was for a moment there. I got really in tune with here and now. Here and now is not a funny thing, and it doesn't take any effort. We're always literally in the here and now, whether we think we are or not, is where the rub is. And we start getting that change is just a function of now and now and now and now and now, with the conditions literally shifting with each and every subsequent now. And we start getting, well, it's okay to be confused. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's even okay to be intolerably miserable. It is okay. It's one of the flavors of life. It is not something I'm looking forward to. I have been intolerably miserable before. I have, for sure. Not so long ago, maybe even today. I don't know. I've gone through it. It is okay in the grand scheme of things. It's one of those many emotions that the human condition allows us and invites us to experience as part of this masterful process of living for this short time in this three-dimensional world.
I love that. I just love it. Now, how much of this do you actually tell your patient?
I'm not afraid to talk to my patients about any of this shit. Why would I? I live once too. You have to look. That's a very good question. I see what you're coming with. It's only important when you're communicating that what it is that you have to say gets over there. It's not so important that I say what I want to say. It's really important that I say what I want to say that lands over there. I have no purpose to communicate if it's not going to land over there. Just because it gets it off my chest, that's a completely selfish reason to communicate. So the idea is I need to gauge what's going on over there. I need to have human connection. You might know that, the whole point of Welcome to Humanity, my brand, and the whole point of True Voice and Creative 8 back there, my two books, is that human connection is at the heart of all healing. There is no more potent medicine in the history of humanity, again, as I expand out again to all of humanity over all of time, than what human connection has to offer. Certainly, there's no toxic or toxin or chemical medicine that was ever created in a high tower of some pharmacological company that rivals the power of human connection. But what is human connection? Human connection is getting myself out of the way long enough so that I can relate to you, and being curious and interested and available and really open enough to actually hear what it is that you're either saying or attempting to express through your nonverbals, so that we can human connect. If I'm able to human connect with you, I promise there'll be a sense of healing that goes on not only with you, but with me and with all. The healing takes place inside of that masterful process of human connection, which is generally, in our world anyways, created through powerful conversation. There are other ways to create human connection. That's what this book is, The Creative 8. And that talks about, different forms of communication and healing through creativity and self-expression. So art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, gardening. These are the 8 that I picked out. There's a few others since then. That was like the original, like the original 8. And then there's been a couple more that have been added. And ultimately, what we're really talking about is we work hard to express ourselves, and we think that's in the speaking. We think that's in the delivery. Expressing ourselves, we think, is in the outpouring, in the transmission. But it isn't. Expressing ourselves is a function of the bilateral nature of communication, which requires both listening and speaking. And in that type of expression, in that type of sharing, that's where the human connection happens. And frankly, I've been with some people that have been labeled pretty freaking sick. I've worked in some serious, level 4 security prisons, Pelican Bay and Folsom State. I've been in some of the most hideous inpatient units around this country, where people are pretty sick, like supposedly. That's a whole different question here, but when I land with them, when I communicate with them, when I connect with them, when I hear them for who they are and who they're not, boom. Instantaneously, no side effects. Boom. We all there's that connection. That's where love sits. That's where healing sits. That's where magic sits. That's where it all is. That's why we have podcasts. That both of our intentions are to walk towards each other, to be with each other so that we can resonate and connect. I throw my music out through my words. You listen to my music. You respond and transmit your music. And our hope is that we'll connect, because we know inherently that all of it revolves around human connection.
Mm. I love that. How about I'm just gonna play devil's advocate. What about I mean, obviously we can't connect with everybody as much as we'd like to. What about those folks who are who are what about those folks whose difficulties lie precisely in feeling way too vulnerable at human interaction? What about those folks? Are those folks that we
People who get too vulnerable in the face of interaction, is that what you're asking about?
right? So I guess one term which I never quite understand is neurodiverse neurodiverse folks, or people who are, you know, in this nomenclature particularly schizoid or fearful, who want desperately to connect, but who find the process of connecting to be overwhelming, can't do it, and so
Yeah.
they're
So I don't. Here's the thing. Again, you're doing a great job of empathizing with that group, and this is sort of what I'm talking about. When you pick and choose what you say and how to say and be with another person, people have their sensitivities. They have their so-called deficiencies. They have their strengths and weaknesses, and these do alter over time. This, like, your strengths and weaknesses are different than mine, or different than his, and different than hers, and we all have that. So when you're speaking to somebody who's got, some neurodivergent based communication difficulties, perhaps, I think that the onus is on you to uh, gather that up and be with them in such a way, such you really understand that that's what's happening here. They are immediately available to you, capturing inside of that you get that they have that. When you can authentically resonate harmonically with the fact that they're having trouble communicating with you, you have succeeded in communicating with them. In that process of the harmonic resonating nature of the beauty of a human connection, healing still exists right there. Even if you're interviewing an axe murderer, or let alone somebody who's so, sociopathic, or somebody who's so introverted, or someone who's afraid or ultra vulnerable, or someone who's overzealous. It's a matter of getting what's over there
Mhm.
and meeting them from where they're meeting them. And your job, and what is always available, even in those who are certain that they don't know how to communicate, is to communicate with them.
Yeah.
And look, like, communicating, I have 3 cats, and most people know that. I have these amazing cats in this house. And Valentino, one of the 3 cats, he's my dude. Me and him communicate. We communicate across species. There's nobody who knows me like Valentino does. He knows me at levels that are way beyond word. He knows every word of the English language, and he never speaks them, but he knows exactly what's going on. And communication can really take place inside of getting that there's communication difficulties. So the resonating harmony that can happen in that setting still can create that explosiveness of love and healing right in the middle of it.
No, I love that. I absolutely love that. You know, it's I think the wisest words ever spoken to me in terms of supervision some years ago were "be where the patient is." It's like
Can you speak up a little bit, Nicholas?
be where the patient
Oh, keep the
is the best
microphone there for the rest of this guy. That's perfect.
be where the patient is
Exactly.
the best supervision I ever received.
Exactly.
Yeah, be where they are,
Exactly.
and sometimes where they are is too elusive or too distant or something, but you have to be where they are.
You have to. Your GPS isn't going to work if you don't know where you are, and so you can't know what's going on with them if you're not where they are. And
Yeah.
that's the skill of being someone who knows how to connect, which, by the way, does not require any kind of credentials or any kind of schooling. This is a human capacity to connect with another person, meaning all of us, even if we have a degree or no degree, or schooling or no schooling, can become massive healers inside of our capacity to connect with other people. I didn't learn how to connect in school. That's for sure.
Well, they don't teach you that in school.
No, they did not
If
at all.
anything else, they
They
teach
don't.
you.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay. So I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I appreciate what you just said. But I also, unfortunately, you probably do too. I've heard too many stories of well-meaning, smart, empathic people just being way over their heads with certain folks who are not obviously psychotic or not obviously dangerous, but in fact are. And those folks, the people I'm talking about, unfortunately, didn't know enough to refer them or to get help, and bad things happen. So
Yeah.
I think on a human level, I absolutely am with you. But if you're going to be treating human beings who just walk in your door, it seems to me you better know something about something. You better.
Well, it is. I don't reference very much of what I've learned in school or residency or fellowship at all, ever. I do reference great books that I read, and I do read some great books and attend some great conference and listen to great people. But I was not even introduced to them on my way through the degree at all. So I don't think it's really the degree and schooling that causes the capacity for me to be kept from being over my head. I do have, no one introduced me to Thomas Zaz while I was in school. That's for
Huh,
sure.
huh.
That's not happening. No one even introduced me to R.D. Laing. No one introduced me to Urban Yalom. No one introduced me to Carl Rogers. No one introduced me to that. Maybe I got a little bit of Rogers and Yalom. I'm not sure. But,
Mhm.
both of them are so phenomenal. I'm such a fan of both of them these days. And me and Irvin, I've even had some email exchanges with him because he's just, I idolize that man. I love what he has done in his 90 plus years on this planet. Love that
Mhm.
guy.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, who else do you like? I mean, that's a good.
Oh, that's a really good question. So I think, from a clinical standpoint, I think, some of the old physicians, it's like I like Hahnemann, for instance, who's the founder of homeopathy. I love Maimonides. I think he was like one of the most interesting men in the history of the planet. I love that guy. I like R.D. Laing. I of course adore Carl Jung. I think that his work and his whole life is so fascinating to me. Um, all the people who have done any work inside of psychedelics are very interesting, including and maybe especially Aldous Huxley. I think he's amazing. I think that Krishnamurti is amazing. I think that all the yogis are amazing. All the major yogis um, like Yogananda. I'm reading Autobiography of a Yogi these days again, and I'm loving it. Um, and then, I'm trying to look at my bookshelf to see if any of these can come. Oh, Ram Dass and Alan Watts. I love Alan Watts. As a guy who's just straight up down to earth. And so, and then William Burroughs and Jack Kerouac and all those guys, they had something to say about how life goes. And it's just, look, there's something about breaking away from the conventional nature of what the three-dimensional world tells us we should believe about how things go, and going out there and truly discovering and then expressing what it is that you found when you went over the fence. Those are the people I'm interested in.
That's great. That's great. That's really great. um, what is your typical day? You have so many different things going on. Do you have a concentration and do you do more of one thing than the next, or is it?
Yeah, I have an actual full-time job these days, which, for a while there, I've had a lot of jobs. My CV is pretty remarkable. I look at it and can't believe that that it is me. I've had hundreds of jobs in my life, and what that really, really translates to be honest, Nicholas, is that I've quit hundreds of jobs, and I've quit hundreds of jobs because none of them really allowed me to be me. By the time that they were asking me to do what they really hired me to do, there was such a discord, there was such a dissonance that I often had to leave the job. I was being asked to be, typecast as a diagnoser, as a medicator, doing, I took an oath that I take a little bit seriously with this, first do no harm. And I wasn't sure that I wasn't doing harm in many cases. So these days I found a company. I'm not supposed to name them on podcast, so I won't. But they hired me after vetting me, after finding me in a podcast and chasing me down and asked me to come work with them. And they really seriously want me to be me. So I truly appreciate this company. I have a 40-hour job that I see clients online. I'll be starting, as you know, in about 12 minutes with my first client today. And then I have some coaching clients, some personal coaching clients. I have time off during the day where I listen to books like Yogananda is happening. I have a couple hours today, and I'm planning on tuning into Yogananda. I study the Torah a little bit through the Kabbalah, so I have a couple classes of that in a week. I have a wife. I have these amazing felines that I talked about. They keep me totally occupied. I love watching and learning from them. They're our homeschool teachers. I eat pretty well. I tell you, I take a walk. I take a walk every single day for at least an hour up and down the sort of creek we have that's not very far away. And, and I still don't do nearly the stuff that I want to do during the day. And, I have a piano over here. I had a piano lesson last night, and improvisation and fifths and fourths and sevenths and like substitutions and augmentations and diminishments. Totally loved it. I try to keep myself doing good stuff, and I'm just as subject as any human to be having impulses to do not good stuff, whether that's eating too much or indulging or hedonistically taking care of my own pleasure, wants, or needs. And I do my best to at least respect that those rabbit holes are not worth paying that much attention to. But I struggle because I'm not that unique. I'm pretty sure we all struggle with those things.
Let me ask you another question, which you don't have to answer, obviously. Were you ever in your own treatment?
Was I ever what?
In treatment in psychotherapy?
Oh yeah, for sure. I was in psychotherapy as a teenager, twice a week, for at least 4 years with a great psychoanalyst in Northwest Detroit. And then he changed me to another psychoanalyst. I was with him for a little while. And then when I went to medical school, or when I went to my residency, there was a program at the time that if you were in a psychiatric residency, no, if you worked in the state hospital as a doctor doing physical examinations, you could get psychoanalysis for like $0. So I started my psychoanalysis doing work in a state hospital, doing physical examinations, and then they altered the program halfway through my first year. So I was already in my analysis, and so I did psychoanalysis as a analysan for 9 years, 4 times a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Listen,
So I qualify. I qualify for being like a $1 million baby inside of therapy.
Right. I think I could give you a run for your money. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you. And I hope we can do this again sometime. I want to end a little early so you're not frantic to get to your patient.
No problem.
Dr. Fred, thank you for joining us today. I'm sure that all our listeners are very pleased. If they want to get a hold of you, I think all they have to do is type Dr. Fred into the browser, and you're going to come up in all of your shapes and sizes, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a lot of podcasts that I've been on. I've been a guest at about somewhere over 200 podcasts now, and I have my own podcast, so those are both good places to find me online. There's drfred360.com, drfred360.com, that kind of displays everything that I'm up to, a pretty cool cumulative compilation of what I'm up to. And then there's my main website that's going through chronic construction, and that's welcometohumanity.net, which is my main brand. And they have my 2 books behind me. We have a couple courses that I've built, and there's freebies on the Dr. Fred site that you can find me. And I buzz around, inappropriately buzz around Facebook. I can't stand Facebook, but my God, it's just that algorithm is painfully powerful. And Also, you can find me on LinkedIn, and we have a growing YouTube channel. Again, I'm not supposed to say that. I'm supposed to say just one or two things. drfred360.com and welcome to humanity.net.
All right, Dr. Fred. Thank you so much.
Nicholas, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All righty.
All right. Bye.